Yeah. We're live. All right, good evening. This is a meeting of the Council Rock School District Facilities Committee. My name is Mike Thorwood. I'm the chair of the committee. We have board member Denise Brooks with us. And administratively, we have Doug Taylor, Dr. Frazier, and Matt Frederickson. And members of the public. We're going to get started right now. I expect more board members to trickle in as we get going. So Doug, take it away.
Thank you. There is a sign-in sheet going around. Everyone, please sign in. I appreciate it. I'm going to move the meeting as quickly as I can, knowing there's a finance meeting immediately following this meeting. I'm going to talk about the energy management update, facility improvement projects, and touch on capital improvement projects. Some miscellaneous items, including the custodial services that we had talked about a few months back. Some boarding consent agenda items, upcoming agenda, and then public comment at the end. So the energy management update, again, we are scoring very well. You can see we're at 89 cents a square foot. This is weather adjusted based on the time of year. This goes back to October. These reports are always lagging because they need all the utility bills to come in before they can actually prepare the final numbers. We also, because we missed the last facilities meeting in January, I also have that's the October and the November report as well. You can see we're still at 89 cents a square foot, weather adjusted. A very, very good number for electric and gas use in the district of the South. So that's something to be very proud of here. And that's just a larger picture of it, the energy intensity. The Energy Star score is an 80. That was the baseline, it was an 86. So we're a very high energy score, Energy Star rating. Doing very well. So we'll keep working hard. And as we make other changes throughout the district, LED lighting, and continue to address some of the lighting in the older buildings, it really does help us out district-wide.
You're moving in the right direction.
Definitely. It's going to be hard to get much less, but we're going to keep trying anything.
Yeah.
Facility improvement projects, both projects, Newtown Middle School and Holland Middle School, are going very well, both on schedule, on target. Newtown Middle School is scheduled to wrap up this summer, as well as Holland Middle School. Newtown, new building will finish before the new construction. I'll touch on that shortly. We're working on the remaining furniture deliveries for Holland coming in July. Furniture deliveries for Newtown in June. I'm going to talk about the bid for those shortly. Holland Middle School, Newtown Middle School, Richboro building moves 22 to 22nd of June. A lot of work there to move all of those schools around. Occupying Newtown Middle School, at least the administrative office area, around May. Not sure what's happening there.
That was me, sorry.
All right.
I'm good.
So we're going to get that office occupied around May, so that when we vacate the middle school, the administratively we're watching what's happening as we start to load the new school. That will work well. And then the plan, Newtown Middle School demolition starting in July. We have a fairly sizable meeting coming up next week to discuss more detailed planning on how that's going to work. So again, Newtown Middle School, that project will wrap up around May. Because it's new, we don't have kids in the building that we have to vacate before we can finish a gym or some of the other spaces that we have at a Holland Middle School, which we will work on this coming summer. And you can see the Holland Middle School had many, many phases. We've completed most. We have nursing guidance, converting the vacated administration area to some classroom space, second floor classroom renovations, the northern half, the auditorium addition, gymnasium renovations, library renovations, and remaining site work all wrap up between the end of July and the end of August. That project will be finished in totality by no later than the 24th of August, and we are definitely on track to do that. Going very well.
What's next? That was in 2 weeks ago.
And we're going to try to schedule a Saturday morning.
Yeah. Whenever you think it's appropriate with the contractors for both buildings.
Wrightstown Elementary School, additions and renovations. work in progress. So we're now in the construction documentation phase. That project is moving quickly. We've been performing constructability, value engineering reviews. We've prepared multiple pages of comments that we shared back with the architect to incorporate into construction drawings as we move forward. The Plan Part B hearing took place. The Bucks County Conservation District performed their review and approved the project as well. So now we have the township and Conservation District approvals. So everything is in place. All we have to do is execute the land development agreement and get the financial security in place, and we're ready to go. So honestly, the fastest approval in the history of my life in terms of school projects. Wrightstown was very cooperative in working with us on this. And another item, a potential addition of a 15-mile-an-hour flasher at Richboro Middle School. With it becoming an elementary school, I think it might be wise to take. There are 2 flashers out there that work for Richboro Elementary School. But instead of taking the one and simply shifting it up the street, because it's hardwired electric and it's tired, we're looking at putting a solar-powered light further up, and then we can move that later when we're finished using Richboro Middle School as a temporary elementary school. So we are in good shape here. We're working on the construction documents. We're looking for a notice to proceed around May 21st to start construction. The bids will be due April 25th. So we will have the bids, and when we get to those bids, obviously we'll review the results of the board and provide a recommendation based on alternates that we did, and we'll go from there in terms of what the project scope will be. That project will run a year and wrap up by July, August of 19, so that we can move the kids out of Richboro Middle School back into Wrightstown Elementary School, and then move, pending it continues to move forward, and the bids are good, we would move then Rolling Hills into Richboro Middle School and start that same process again. So we're coordinating with Northampton Township on the solar power unit. They have their engineer McMahon Associates that could work directly with PennDOT, prepare the drawings for us, and we would work directly through the township to get this project on. The engineering fees are reasonable. The estimated construction cost is just that, it's an estimated construction cost. Whether we do it or they do it, it's around $23,000. They would definitely be able to help us move the PennDOT piece along a little quicker through McMahon. So I have this on the agenda for authorization to work with the township to move this forward for the next board meeting. We don't have to make a decision tonight. It's just something that will show up.
We need it though.
I agree.
We need it.
People ask me why we didn't have it for the middle school. So,
Yeah.
You could ask, certainly could ask that. Yeah. We have a flasher at this end for Richboro Middle, as we move up the street. We have one here coming in this direction. If we move up into this area, so basically you have 15 here, protect this entire stretch.
And you'd have to use it twice in a day.
Have to use,
More
times, right?
4 times. Yeah.
Exactly.
And just on the top of flashers, can we just, apropos of nothing that you said here, can we confirm that all the flashers in the district are legible and the lights work? Some of them have the marker on it that says 50 miles per hour have become tired.
Okay.
That's district-wide. It's not a big deal.
Doug has been great when I noticed them not being in sync. So
Well, yeah, that's
No problem. So moving away from that, Rolling Hills Elementary School addition renovations. As you're aware, we performed physical investigations prior to the onset of winter weather. The subsequent phases were approved at the 18th February. What would be February? It would have been January. Figuring out how it's there already. So what's next? Reviewing the initial survey information, the soils conditions, the roof structure. It's a cast-in-place concrete roof structure, much like Holland Elementary School is. and understanding from a site development standpoint how this proposed renovation project works on this site and what it looks like when you compare it to other options. Meet with the administration to develop a program. I developed an actual program with Sam Smith and with Barry in order to determine what the existing building is, what the building would want to be in order to establish the budget. So I don't just, when I prepare a budget, I make sure that I'm actually looking at what the actual building wants to be when it's finished. So the budget was based upon that. I think the budget will stay very close to what it is proposed to be. But we need to go through that process to make sure that every space that Sam would need is covered. Then we would prepare some conceptual plans, and before this point, David Schrader worked with me, and we prepared some very crude conceptual plans that need to be developed just to make sure there's some reasonable options to make this building work. So we came up with around 6 options. Now that they're authorized to proceed, this draftsman will take these options and turn them into hardline sketches to make sure they actually fit, put everything into scale.
So these conversations continue to be on the assumption that that building will be no bigger than it is right now?
It's slightly bigger. You would add, in order to...
Actually, I don't necessarily mean in terms of square footage, I mean in terms of student capacity?
Student capacity, similar. It's I think 18 classrooms and 1 kindergarten room.
And so relative to any, the redistricting is working on an assumption that this building wouldn't be any bigger, but if the tomography study or, if there was some need where the building would have to increase in size based on the direction of a redistricting committee, how do we continue, how do you continue your work and leave the options over if the decisions are made or conclusions are drawn that that building may not be big enough for the needs of the district?
Right. So it's a good question, and certainly something that we've considered as a design team that I brought up to our administrative team. To me, this is very tough to see it with the lights, but the building is very deep. It's, kind of a rectilinear, a fat rectangle, if you will, and it's very deep. So getting light into the middle of the building and not having traditional classroom wings makes it challenging to create a building that you would today if you were to create a brand new school on a site like this. But because the building can be vacated, because there's ability to create some classrooms around the perimeter and get some daylight into those, the structural engineer took a look, and we have the ability to create some, this is very graphic, just a conceptual, but create some skylights that we could get our light into corridors and into classrooms inside, so we can actually get daylight in the middle of the building. It's a viable option for renovation. I think if you're going to develop the south, more kids to the south, my recommendation would be that you wouldn't use this building, even if that's the exact spot you wanted. I'd consider Richboro Elementary School or Hillcrest. Both those buildings are more traditional 1990s construction with wings that are suitable to handle 10 classrooms in each school. It improves the circulation around those schools, or more on one of those 2 schools if that's that was the case. But I really wouldn't recommend Rolling Hills being expanded beyond the capacity it is today. I think it's a great option to renovate, to keep the school. The community wanted to keep the school, so I think it's worthy of that. I don't think it's worthy of trying to sprawl it out across the site that had more capacity.
If you were to renovate this school and put an addition onto another school, would it ultimately, this is also hypothetical, would it be less expensive to tear down Rolling Hills and build a new Rolling Hills that's bigger?
So that's good. It's all part of where I'm headed. So I'll finish this slide. We're talking about a draft schedule that shows this project happening right after the Wrightstown Elementary School project. So we're just taking kids out of Richboro, moving another group in, continuing to use that building without losing a year, and then extending how we would use the Richboro Middle School down the road. So it minimizes the amount of time we're using it for some other functions until we decide how we want to repurpose it. If you look at the budget, one of the things I wanted to look at, and I say the fair draft budget is based on renovations versus what if we build a new school. So we talked about that. And the engineers took some time to take a look at the structure to make sure we could put openings in the roof to get daylight in. We looked at the soils conditions. We found that the soils on that site are suitable soils. They're not all well compacted around the building the way they probably should have been. So anywhere we would put some proposed additions, we can simply scoop some of that soil out, save it, put it back, call them ledge, you put it back in 8-inch thickness, 8-inch layers, you compact it, put 8 inches more back, compact it until it's suitable to put your addition. It's not a big deal because the soils you take out, you can put right back. You have to take out import engineered fill that has cost. It's not a big deal. So the site, and because we can empty the building and do this project quickly, it's, as I said, it's a viable option for renovations. The new construction would increase the cost around $6.5 million. So if you were to build this same school, same capacity back behind the site, you'd spend about 6.5 more. So instead of 20 million, you'd be at 26 million. I'm not sure that it's really, if you look at
Same size school too.
Same size, yeah, we're not increasing the size. It's 18 classrooms, kindergarten room, gym, all the other things it has. It would just be new. Obviously, anytime you build a new building, you can improve circulation and do some things you can't do with the efficiencies of an existing building. But if you've been to Holland Elementary School and saw how we converted that structure to what it is today, I think it's beautiful. This building would feel very much like that. So it's hard for me to say that you shouldn't use this and renovate it.
The difference being that Holland had a more conventional structure
They do.
with exterior windows
Right.
in all buildings. This one you have not.
So the question is it worth, would skylights with barred light in the classrooms on either side, this would all be exterior windows here and around here, so you get a lot of classrooms around the perimeter with windows. You get some barred light in the classrooms inside, through a skylight, through a transom glass window. Is it worth tearing this down and not going with that concept and spending $6 million more to get a more traditional school on that site? That's something you would have to answer. I think this is worth renovating based on where we are with monies and trying to take our monies and use those for other buildings down the road. So
Now this may purely be, and this is only my opinion from an aesthetics perspective, which is if you treat it as a shell, also what you use as the interior portion of the building versus the perimeter portion of the building could change.
absolutely.
For usage, more of the interior structures being less child-centered functions, where there's more of a transitory nature to it, where the kids are there for an hour or two rather than a classroom.
Is there windows?
There's not a lot of glass.
As you know, from Holland Middle School, we can make windows.
So that was going to be my next
You
question. There's
create
no
a-
structural issue.
The beautiful thing is it's cast in place concrete, other than the columns that you have to keep. You can
Sure.
go in and tear it out,
That's
create a
right.
shell, and then create a new, plan inside. So, look, I'd love to see a new building, obviously, but I think much like Holland Middle School, when we said this building is worthy of saving, we'll save $6 million, I think we're in the same category with this building. And I just know that this building meant so much to the community that I was trying to save it. That's where we are with Rolling Hills. I'm happy to discuss, alternatives, but I wanted to see if this was worthy of renovations, and we believe it is after spending a little time digging into it. So the
Thanks, Rick.
floor height's the same. The floor structure height is the exact same as Holland Elementary School, so all this, we know the systems will work. We check those.
I appreciate that. I just want to say, my question was more not about if we, should we renovate or build new. It's more in how does this fit into the overall plan, since the redistricting is not determined and, there's concerns about Spring Mill and how we may accommodate for that. So it's more just, I want to make sure that we have a global view on this.
Sure, so I obviously can't speak to the redistricting piece the way Some others can, I'm not part of that committee, but all I was saying, thankfully, right? So all I was saying is, if you were going to develop the area, my recommendation would be that this would be the building that you would use even if you needed to grow the south. So in the redistricting scenario, I think if you needed growth in the south, you could use one of those or both of the other two schools that are within, a driver of where the school is as far as distance. Hillcrest is right around the corner, and Richboro Ellis is nearby too. So I think you have the ability on those two buildings being 1990s construction with more conventional wings to enclose a wing and to get 10 classrooms and have nicer circulation.
They would be just like Newtown Elementary.
It would be exactly like Newtown. You could pick up 20 classrooms within a very short distance of two schools by connecting those wings.
That's elementary school.
The lessons to take from that, which again goes thematically to what you look at to do with Rolling Hills, is schools last a long time. And those buildings were built with a predefined stub, if you will, with which to connect additions. So even as we look to do this, with an eye towards where would the addition be? Maybe not in my lifetime, but, building last
You're
10
saying like a
years.
predefined stuff.
On the building, meaning that, where would, if you were to, you can always say, where would you put a wing if you were to? So
I mean, yeah, we could create this with a car between two classrooms that lends itself to extending a wing between those.
that's my point. As we did at South, we built South, I think for 1,600, then we added, we actually, if you think of the way South is laid off, the little H's became longer because we had that predefined.
I saw that because I had some existing floor plans that weren't right. We actually did extend a couple wings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Intentionally, in the construction process, yeah.
So this is the budget that we talked about for that project, and we believe that number is very real to do what we need to do to make this building a very nice building that will facilitate the number of students that are there now. The redistricting piece, I really can't speak to. So sorry about that.
But before we get to spend that money, redistricting will have been solved by the time we get to making a decision about this.
It would. The only difference is if we're going to embark on a process with the design team, we want to know renovate or consider something much different. So if we say we're going to renovate and we're ready to hit the ground running now, we can always renovate with the thought of if beyond our lifetime, somebody wants to try to make this building more sprawling, if you will, and would need to, that we would have the ability to do that. I think you try to capture 20 spaces nearby before you do that. That's just my opinion. Just one person.
Jerry's point was valid. You could put a corridor and turn it into a closet if you wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can have in mind.
Yes.
But that also goes to sizing of the campus, meaning you also then consider what your chillers are. You're not going to make a second chiller location. You may make a second chiller pad. Right. You wouldn't make a second chiller
size
location.
the boiler room to facilitate. You probably would not size a generator because.
That's right.
But you could row the.
You'd have the pad there.
The heating plant.
Exactly.
And the schedule is on 18 January. If the board, said to move forward with the next phases, and we've met with the team, and we're scheduled in 2 weeks to regroup and start, getting moving with conceptual plans. And as we get there, we get options. We'll be, in front of you, and I'll show you some of those thoughts. And we'll certainly have lots of time to talk. Facility improvement project update, moving services. We have bid the moving services. The bids came in. We had all the folks that were at the bid, we pre-bid actually provided bids, not for every package, but they were interested in providing numbers. So that was on the 18th of January. We're doing the bids with you tonight, and we'll bring the results to you to the next meeting, so that we can get this approved and begin to move. The scope, I think we've talked about in the past. Basically, all the teachers we're buying boxes, we're buying moving supplies. That's one of the things on the consent agenda for this month as well. We will have teachers pack the boxes. They can put their own stickers and their names and whatever they wish, but at the end, in May, the moving companies will provide color-coded labels. They'll stick those on the ends of the boxes. Certain colors go to certain schools, and they'll know exactly where they go. They'll have folks steering them into the appropriate classrooms, and then they also load the classrooms with it. We set the rooms up, but they take everything to their final homes. And that's across the district. The libraries are moved on rolling carts that have bookshelves on the sides. We roll it in, the librarians fill the shelves, and wrap it up. They shove it off, and it goes to the new library. We roll it in, they unload the shelves. And
Are we renting those?
those are who the moving contractor provides.
Okay.
The moving contractor provides plastic bins so we can move sensitive things like microscopes, science equipment, anything else for packing the boxes, bigger furniture will tag. We have a system, we're going to have pre-moving meetings with each contractor at each school with the staff so they understand what's happening. I have a big moving meeting coming up next week with everyone involved. Chartwells, Airmark, security, technology, everyone in principals, everyone involved. We're going to talk about everything in there, from paper clips to, you know, to the biggest piece of furniture that has to go. We'll make sure we get that all planned. So the bids came in, Richboro Middle School to move it is about $39,000. They're taking Richboro, they're moving half of it to Newtown, half of it to Holland. It's not just going to one school, so we're moving belongings throughout the district. As you can see, moving the existing Newtown Middle School into the new middle school and some over to Holland Middle School, because again, that staff is splitting in those two directions. It's about $76,000. Wrightstown Elementary School, the whole building is just being packaged and moved to Richboro Middle. Then it's being put into rooms. They'll stage it in the gym so that Richboro can move at the same time. When Richboro's out, they'll go in the gym, they'll take it, and they'll disseminate it throughout the buildings. Holland Middle School, $24,000 to move it.
What are we moving there?
We're moving about half the staff in the belongings. Holland Middle School staff is moving to the new Newtown Middle School.
Okay, all right. I got
So-
it. Yep, you're right.
So we're moving, they're putting two very strong teams together throughout the two middle schools. So people are moving
Yes,
throughout.
I remember.
And then we're renovating the weight rooms at North and South. All of the weight room equipment is getting moved to an alternative location in the school, being set up. It'll still be used by athletes, teams, community, however it's used in the schools. Then when those spaces are finished, the same contractor comes back, grabs it, puts it back in the newly renovated spaces.
Something stupid. How much is the weight room equipment worth?
Equipment,
No, I have no idea.
I don't think it's been bid yet. You'll see the results of that.
More.
Oh, I hope, I would hope, yeah, I have no idea.
You'll see that's something that's being bid outside of the meeting. You'll see the results of that when Bob gets.
I just got a peek right before the meeting.
I think we're bidding the high schools and the middle schools at the same time, so it's one big package. So it'll be a heavy package.
Yeah, well, I just, tired.
So the total of all of these projects is about $167,000. I proposed to Bob and talked to him about Richboro Middle, picking those costs up in the Newtown project, Wrightstown and Wrightstown project, Newtown and Newtown, Holland and Holland, and summer capital projects would pick up the $11,000 for the others as we're renovating those parts of our
You
project.
had contingencies built into your.
We had money built into Wrightstown for moving, and we had contingencies built into the others. Yes. So these are monies we already had planned for, showing you where they're going to be taken from. Capital improvement projects are on task. Today we had half a day of pre-bid meetings here in the room. Tomorrow we have another half a day of pre-bid meetings for the rest of the projects. Going well, we'll get those bids back, and I'll be back in front of you with those results the next meeting. The one project I wanted to bring back to you, as we've done our field investigations, the one project that concerns me more than any, all the others are fine, we're going to be great. The tennis courts itself are a little concerning. You can see the crack that runs under the net. It's not your typical little crack. They're sizable. You can almost lose a tennis player, these guys. They're big. They run. This is the basketball court. The 3 tennis courts are beyond. And this crack runs from the basketball, obviously nothing in the grass, up across the next court, nothing in the lawn, and continues. So it's a linear crack across all of those areas. So this is 3 tennis courts, 2 tennis courts, 3 tennis courts, and basketball. That crack goes straight down through the middle of those. So it's a why is this? Obviously there wasn't seismic activity in the first
Tectonic
place.
plates.
Actually, opened up the site. Although we've had, we felt tremors here, or whatever you want.
What is it?
What I think it is, what we think it is this dash line kind of shows where the grades are, where the site is graded. These are spot elevations. It's 258, 255, meaning this site sloped about 3 feet across that area down to this contour line. A couple feet, a couple feet, a couple feet. So the site slopes from top to bottom. If you look at a cross section here, the existing grade, this is, again, diagrammatic. The existing grade on this dashed line used to be something like this. So they came in to construct the tennis courts, and they cut this area out, and they move it over to here, and they fill this, and they create this flat area to put a tennis court. When they do that, if you don't remove the organic material and strip all this topsoil and prepare the site properly, over time you can get settlement there and you can have problems with whatever. It could be a slab on grade in the building, it could be a parking lot, it could be a tennis court, a basketball court. We believe that we're seeing movement in the site potentially here because of that potential settlement. Now, have we confirmed that? No, it's suspicion. So when I say that, we want to change our action plan for this project just a little bit. We're still going to go in and we're going to take care of the cracks. We're going to use a crack repair product for the cracks. We're going to go in along the center court of all those courts and cut out about 5 feet width for each tennis court, the length of the nets. We're going to go ahead and take out the whole profile there. So it's basically like a parking lot. It's paving. So you have base paving, you have a wearing surface, and then you have the pavement. So you're going to take that out down to the stone. And in this case, we're going to take the stone out and we're going to check the soil to see what's happening in the soil. And if the soil isn't suitable, we'll know that there could be a problem across all these courts. So we'll start with one, and we'll see. If it doesn't appear to be a problem, we'll go ahead with those repairs. We'll also do other cracks. But what we were going to do was bring a milling machine in, like you see in the street, and mill all the surface off, like 1.5 inches, bring a paving machine back, pave the whole thing, and then you paint, stripe it, and they feel like brand new courts. We're going to hold off on that piece. We're going to go ahead and fix the middle. We're going to put the nets back in place. We're going to do crack repairs, and then we're going to repaint it, restripe it. But we're not going to mill and overlay. The other thing we're going to do is across the top, the high end of the site, put a piece of drainage pipe in that ties into storm drainage. In the event that we're getting groundwater coming in and undermining the courts that could be contributing to this problem. That would be advisable to do no matter what at this area. So we'll then observe and we'll see if over the next year things aren't moving around and we're not seeing these cracks open and the center line being problematic. Then we can, in a year or two, come back, mill and overlay these courts and do the right thing to the surface. But until then, I don't want to spend the money on that in the event that we see movement again. And then we will wasted some significant monies to do that.
But in that year we're waiting, they'll be playable.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to use a suitable crack repair, reinforcement,
or whatever.
It'll be absolutely fine.
So you're going to, I imagine, once you finish the work, you're going to set points on a survey, have a surveyor set points, and then at a time specific in the future, resurvey and establish if there's movement?
We can do that. I think it's just going to be more visual as the cracks open.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, not to be stupid, but am I looking at, the downhill side
right.
is now angled differently than the uphill side, where the uphill side is flat. I'm also trying to identify where the movement is.
We're going to bring a geotech in just to do some probing, and when we open it up, have them do some probing in the earth to see what the soil's profile is, what's happening there. It'll show us if there's organics. It'll show us if it's well compacted, if it's poorly compacted. So we'll learn when we open it up. I don't want to start drilling through the quartz right now. So, but
And this is not going to interfere, this is spring sports start in what, like 6, 7 weeks?
Yeah, well, this is some, I mean, this will be summer work, so
But so that there's no issue for them? Okay.
we'll be
Correct.
fine. Yeah, we're working with athletic directors and scheduling the courts and all those.
No, I think what Denise is more concerned with is a big crack now.
Oh, no, the cracks,
Yeah.
fortunately, the crack is right under the net. I mean, it's right, initially, I thought it, the problem, the challenge when you have kind of community use nets, the poles are there and someone cranks it tight. So now there's tension on the poles. And they're not released at the end when they're done. What you really should do on the tennis court when you're done, release it so the pressure comes off the pole. Then after a while, somebody comes along and they kind of crank it again and it starts to pull on it again. Over time, the poles start to move inward. You can see the poles are all over the place. So I thought, well, maybe we're just kind of creating a sheer, a challenge, stress across the course with pulling footings. There's a center hold down for the net. Maybe we're just, creating stress across all of these. But then it goes to the basketball court where there's no holes or net.
That'd be a lot of tension.
That'd be a lot of tension, yeah. So, it's absolutely playable now, it's fine, but it needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
That line does run other directions too, so. So the custodial RFP, we've talked a lot about at other meetings. This was just the summary of all of the proposals, which is again available on our website if you needed to see that. This was a summary that I had put together of the three firms that were here to interview before. There are representatives from each of the three firms here tonight to observe the conversations. So at the end of the day, I think we were talking about the potential of a three-year agreement that would return us back to a 6:30 to 10:30 time slot for this process. And in that, if you're just looking at numbers, Aramark was the lowest number when you look at it annually for this service. To return to 6:30 to 10:30 over 3 years, Aramark was about 7.32, Interstate 7.356, and SSC 7.453. All very good competitive numbers, all worthy of consideration, of course. So we had the interviews in December. The last meeting, we were going to talk about this in January. Tonight, we're here to talk about it. I would love to bring this to the board in February on the 15th so we can move forward and get whichever team it is ready to go. So we're ready for the summer months. One thing I wanted to touch on today, we talked a lot about AFL levels and what's AFL level 1 through 5. There's a lot of confusion as to what you should be doing. Why are things dirty? I don't understand why things are the way they are. So I just wanted to quickly run through those so we understand. The level 5 is unkept, neglected space. You can read this on your own, but basically we've equated it to a bathroom at a gas station. It's just a mess. It's not, you never want a level 5 in your building. Not even a gas station wants level. Level 4 is moderate dinginess. I mean, these are true levels by APA, who was a recognized leader in educational facilities. The floors are swept and vacuumed. They're dull, they're dingy, they're stained. There's noticeable buildup, dirt on floors, corners, along walls. We don't own that either. Level 3 is casual benefits. This is what we own under the current contract. So when you look at what we own, floors are swept or vacuum cleaned, but upon close observation, there can be stains, buildup of dirt in the floor finishing floors and along walls can be seen. Spots obviously matted carpet and walking lanes, streaks or splashes on the baseboards, all vertical horizontal surfaces of obvious dirt, dust, marks, smudges, fingerprints. Waste containers are empty daily and odor-free. So I would say we're doing better than this, but some would argue not every space is better than this. I hear both sides. It depends on personnel, like it does in any building. Some are better than others, but across the board, on average, we're definitely at a 3. I don't know that we're at a 2. I don't think we are at a 2. This RFP requires whichever custodial team we bring on board, to be at a level 2, ordinary tidiness. So floors and base molding shine and are bright and clean. There's no buildup of corners along the walls, but there can be up to 2 days worth of dust during the state. So for 2 days, something could sit in the corner. The third day, the dust bunnies go away. So they're not there all the time. You know, all vertical and horizontal surfaces are clean, but marks, dust, smudges, and fingerprints are noticeable on close observation. Again, you're talking about a classroom with 25 kids who are running around, very active, and in some schools, elementary schools. Hopefully, they're not running around too much in high school.
Maybe surprised.
Maybe a little bit. Washroom, shower pictures, and tile clean and are odor-free. Supplies are adequate. Waste containers hold all your daily waste and are clean and odor-free. So this is a level that I think we want to be at. There are studies that show that buildings that are at this level are better for the students. They perform better when they feel like they're in a cleaner environment. Universities have run that study, and I've read a couple of articles about that. Level 1 is going to be tough. This is, everything is absolutely perfectly clean every day, and it's really hard to do. You can clean the gym, but as soon as kids go out to recess, come back into the gym and leave, it's dirt. Like, there's just no way you can adjust that. Until the end of the day, you'll clean it, and the first class that comes in the next day, it's dirty. Like, it just happens. But that's because we're using our buildings, and that's a good thing. So what I wanted to touch on is kind of some of the things, what we have and where we're heading. At the level 3 to a 2, 9 to 11 operations to 6:30 to 10. Day-night building leads effectively communicate with staff and outside groups. We really don't have building leads, and honestly, we are challenged with the communication between outside user groups and our own staff. This provides one building lead per school with the ability to effectively communicate with staff, outside groups, and their own custodial team within the building. So there's a leader in each building for the custodial team and someone that can clearly effectively communicate with us. And at night, if someone's using a space and needs something, they can go to that night lead and say, hey, I need something, and they can help, which is sometimes challenged, and then our staff has to be found to make that right. There are no company uniforms today. This does require any one of these firms to actually wear identifiable company uniforms, so that I think it's a better image for all of us. I like that image a lot. In fact, I'd like to consider that for our own team, but that's another discussion for another day. Equipment, there's really nothing in here other than providing new equipment when something goes bad. This requires wind motor, backpack vacuums, portable extractors, and a bunch of other documented equipment that any of the companies, whether it's the team that's here or new coming in, brings to the.
And that's per building or it's spec'd out, however.
It's spec'd out. I mean, it basically requires you with a certain size space to use a backpack vacuum. You have to have one in each school to meet that requirement. Carpet cleaning right now is about once a week. This would require 3 times a week. It's a big change. I mean, that's a big change from what we're used to seeing today to how it would feel. Right now they vacuum, it looks great. Tomorrow stuff falls. They sweep up the big stuff in a dust pan, and it just doesn't get vacuumed again for a week because that's what they own.
It's carpet vacuum.
Carpet vacuum.
As compared to cleaning. I understand what you say, but when you say cleaning,
Carpet vacuum.
there you go.
Sorry.
Because when I hear cleaning, I'm thinking,
Shampoo.
yeah, exactly.
We
No,
do that in our buildings in the summer.
but not 3 times a week.
No.
No, okay, yeah,
I'm sorry. So that's vacuum.
that's fine.
Kindergarten carpet, once a week under this scenario, kindergarten carpet's cleaned and vacuumed every day. Because they hang out.
Exactly.
Those little guys are hanging out. Gymnasium wood floor cleaning is really challenged under our current. When we changed hours, and Aramark helped us with the, we all know the story. They were very helpful in working with us and teaming to help cut a significant amount of money out. But one thing it did when we changed hours, and made it very difficult to clean the gyms at night with the reduced staff and some of the way we use gyms up until 10:30. They're here till 11. They have a half hour trying to get it at the end of the night clean gym while the outside groups are leaving. It doesn't happen. We come in the morning. Aramark's not here till 9 again. We start using gyms before that. And if our team doesn't have time to clean the floor in the morning before they come, the floor is dirty from the night before. And it's become one of the challenges faces with this switchover. This takes care of it with the new hours. They come back, they start the day by getting the gyms clean if they didn't clean them the night before anybody's here. Once a week with an auto scrub, 5 times a week with the dust mop. Sanitize surfaces once a week. Under level 2 is 5 times a week. And Jerry, yeah, and I know Jerry had questions about sanitizing and different equipment, and we heard about the electrostatic, so it cleans and things like that, which we can certainly investigate with any of the teams that would be brought on board.
So everybody's aware, what I had sent Doug a note, and we can talk about it subsequent to this, was the flu's out there right now, and this comes to be a rather big concern. And so my question had been, we had heard about no touch sanitizing, and I was trying to figure out, for me, just from my perspective, to get a number and see if we could implement that very quickly, and if there was a process to get that in. Now, while we're not having a problem, let me not just say that.
No problem.
But I know it's a concern in the community. I'm looking at absenteeism in different areas, and I'm concerned about, is there a way we could, I know it costs some money, but you know what, this is the right way to spend money. You have to.
So I've asked Aaron Mark to give me a price to consider that from now through the end of their current agreement.
Terrific.
We would consider switching that. I'll work with Rick to get that, and I can bring it to the board. We can talk about that. They are, for clarity, using a hospital-grade sanitizer permanently. It's just
The administration of it.
It's certainly not as quick. It's not sprayed and clinging to things the way.
Right.
You probably need it in February, March, like, more than they do in for the flu.
No, exactly.
Right.
This was,
We don't necessarily need it in May.
from my,
No, but I think you could probably, it probably could be something that could be somewhat quickly implemented if it was.
I don't want to say it's emergent, but it's time critical, time of the essence from my perspective at this moment.
So that's something I can talk about with any of the teams. I know Interstate used that with Rosen. Right. So that company it's a supplier of equipment.
Get the numbers.
So
We can talk about it. If it comes available to talk about the next board meeting, normally we would have talked about it here, but it is time of the essence,
No problem.
if we want to consider.
So, and then professional fees, as I said, just going by who the low firm is, in 15, 16, Aaron Mark was around 2.8, then we went through some of the cost cutting and things. 18, 19 to 20, 21 over 3 years, this average is 2.4, so it's a reduction from where they were before. It's still a very good cost for us district-wide for cleaning. So transition planning applies to all the firms. 3 to 2, modify the start finish hours. Preparation of electronic custodial tools would have to happen immediately with whatever team we're using. Delivery of new and additional equipment. There's chemical supply centers, backflow preventers, things that are in every janitorial closet that will have to be switched out if we're making changes to ready for the 18-19 year. And then obviously meeting with their proposed staff and our internal team to make this move. So interview follow-ups is tonight, and then review of the proposals. I know I've certainly looked at the proposals many times. You may have done the same. There are some things in there we have to look at in terms of when we execute an agreement with whichever firm it is. It said that Richbrook Middle School would be closed and vacated, and they are cleaning it 4 times a year, quarterly cleaning. We know it's not closing, but we know for a year Wrightstown Elementary School will be vacated. So in a sense, we're swapping that out. We have to look at square footages and make adjustments. We also know that in the next year, we're not closing Rolling Hills, but we would potentially move them into Richboro Middle School should that move forward. Then they're still cleaning Richboro Middle School. So it looks like it will still work itself out. The numbers will look much different than what we're seeing. But all those things I'll work out with whatever firm we ultimately decide to move with. And then working on the final agreement, I'll do that with Rob Cox. It will take some time. It generally does when you prepare, go through the legal team of the awarded firm, and then language change back to Rob and back and forth. So if that can't happen in time for February, then I would just bring that to March and we would get it executed then. So that is an overview of where we were, where we are with Custodial. if you know, where you want to start with how, my thoughts or your own thoughts, I can share my thoughts. I think that all three of these firms did a really nice job preparing their proposal, bringing information to the district, presenting the information, and I am very appreciative of everything the three of you, your firms have done, your continued interest in coming and calling and wanting to be here, and it's fantastic that you all want to be involved with our district. In saying that, we have a lot happening this summer in the district. We have 2 new middle schools that we're going to open this summer. We have Wrightstown that's going to start construction. We're going to move Wrightstown to Richboro Middle to 2 other middle schools, another middle school empty out, another middle school. There's a lot going on, $5 million worth of summer projects, and other things, the design of another school. So it's a lot, we're busy. In saying that, recognizing that there are new levels that have to be met, I think that we should give everyone the opportunity to meet those standards, to provide the personnel that they're supposed to provide. And in saying that, and I would say this to you here and below, that you would be accountable if that was the decision to meet those standards, and if not, we know that we have 2 very good firms that are willing to come in here and take charge and take care of business. So if in the first year we don't see that change, we don't see Apple level 2, we don't see the effect of communicating people and leaders in the buildings, and all those things aren't working, that we, that we then have to have a conversation and consider the other option at that time. That's just my thought. I am happy to move forward with a change if that's the will of the board, and I will make that happen if that's the case. And I have my opinion on the second firm as well, but I won't offer that unless you want to consider other alternatives. So.
I don't know first all the time. No.
You move fastest.
It's a twitch. Okay, we asked. For me, when we go through the contract, I want to have some fair warning to whoever we pay. I'm really looking at service level agreements. I'm looking at not, oh, you may not get the second year. I'm looking at reductions in payments if they're not at aptitude. I mean, if it's not that, oh, well, sorry, you didn't do well. I'm looking at service level agreements. I'm looking at quarterly summaries that assess, this would be my structure, which on a quarterly basis, there's some level of inspection that has said, well, it wasn't achieved or it was achieved. If it was achieved, you're paid as per contract. If it wasn't achieved, there's a reduction in payments of some order, maybe a per square foot, maybe a few pennies, but we have millions of square feet that bring the number back. There has to be an incentive to do it right and not just right along. So a lot of these things that we've changed are, how do we make sure they're happening? That's, part of this inspection. For me, in terms of the vendor, I have concerns with, and this is just my perspective, and I'm sure persons can defend it, but for me, the notion that of staffing up versus continuing staff, that's a risk. That's how I look at the risk mitigation plan. That's a risk, and I don't see there's not a huge monetary reward for that. So in that sense, I'm favoring continuing with the current vendor because they seem to have that in their shop. I think the uniforms are a great idea, and just, you said I'd love it for our own staff. I would too. When I travel internationally, it is standard that the persons working are in a blue coverall jumpsuit, typically with reflectors on their ankles, and that's just. And I have to tell you, and we'll put it back, well, nobody from security is here. For me, that's an aspect of security that people know who that is. Not that they should wear a badge to. They know who it is, and even the kids know that's a figure of authority in the school. That if there's a problem, go to that person. So I'm all for our staff having. I would love to have the 1C jumpsuits that keep their clothes clean and make it our responsibility. So I'll stay with the current vendor. From my perspective.
Can I ask a question? If you were to go with a vendor that is not Aramark, what does that take from you in terms of your onboarding? With everything else that you have on the plate?
Well, I think the challenge would be, we'll be onboarding at the same time we're moving 4 schools. Finding the time to sit and make sure that watching and making sure that all that is happening the way we need it to. I put a lot of trust in the vendor that we'd be bringing on board, and I believe that the vendors are confident and have the ability to do that, but to not be able to watch it the way I would want to watch it in a different year when we're not doing so much in one summer, be less comfortable this summer than most. It's probably the busiest summer that I will have had since I've been here. You know, not too busy. I mean, it's all very manageable, but it's a lot. And
So I would say for me, with respect to the other vendors, it's important to me. We are asking an awful lot of you, and I don't have an interest in adding more to that plate after hearing your thoughts. I know we went over it, and I know we know about it, but we have a lot of other people here today. Just give me 2 sentences on what Aramark did for us when we were people.
so, you know, a few years back, we, from a budgetary standpoint, we're looking to cut some significant monies from the overall budget, and they worked with us and cut $500,000 out of their annual budget in order to help the district save those monies. And it definitely created, they were willing to do it, they felt that they could do it, and in many ways they accomplished it. There have been some transitional pains in reducing staff to make that happen. And it, in some ways, as you know, as much as they were team players and willing to work with the district, I think it hurt them a little bit because it was a lot to do. It was, we see it in the level at certain times, but I think we've made adjustments and we're starting to come back. So they did a lot for us at that time.
That means a lot to me. You know, new vendors don't have that opportunity. They weren't here, so it's nothing against the other firms. But when we're letting people go and we're not spending money on education in the classroom, books in front of them, and for a vendor to come forward and offer us $500,000 means a lot. So I like kind of what you said. I just want to be clear about it, and that's, I believe, I would go with Aramark for the first year. I would request quarterly reports at this meeting by them about how they're doing, not work you have to do, but work where they are.
These guys right here.
That they have to do to come and present to us with photos that shows us that they're meeting their obligations, because after a year, if that doesn't happen, in all fairness, I'll be much more inclined to take someone else. But I think for me, they get the first shot because of everything they did for us when we were in critical. We were literally in June looking for money, and I believe they came to us and gave us the idea. And we're your staff.
We worked together. They were willing to help them.
So, again, nothing, I thought the presentations, by the way, from the 3 were very, very good. I don't know anything about your business. So really, I really learned a lot, and we didn't decide yet because it was a tough decision. So thank you for coming and bidding on it. Don't feel like you don't have a chance. You guys got to live up to your stuff if we end up going that way. But sincerely, it was really appreciated.
I wasn't at the meeting, and so I did not have the benefit of hearing all the presentations. So I come to this just having read the very shocking submissions that were made. And so while Aramark is a low bidder, the difference is it's not like when we were looking at the bids for the moving services where, the range from the high to the low was so great, it sort of makes you wonder what they were thinking and whatever. These were very much the same. In my reading of the proposals, though, some of the other companies I mean, I understand that there were baseline things that were requested and bid on this, but it seemed that some of the other companies were adding like sort of additional things, so the value of their, service it might not be apples to apples, and so I just, that's what jumped out at me, but, it's the lowest bidder, they've been a good partner, all those things, it's not like I'm against it, but it did seem, and I didn't bring my notes with me, I can't remember which one, but one in particular was a little bit more, creative. And so I thought, well, that might bring a value that's not in that monetary bid. And I recognize it's gonna be a busy summer, but whoever comes in is gonna wanna work to succeed too. So that's my only comment. It doesn't mean that I hear what you're all saying, but that jumped out at me from the proposals.
And I don't disagree, and as I said, the will of the board is to make that change because you've heard so much from, your communities that, you just can't overcome that. I'm willing to, as you know, whatever you need, I will do. It is a professional service, so we're not obligated to go with the lowest number. And I think it's really going to be up to, if we go the route, up to Vermont to demonstrate that they're going to make this happen. The move to level 2 and all the things they have to do, providing the personnel. And if not, as I said, I think we have 2 other companies that demonstrated that they could come in here and do what we need them to do. So
I think there's also, because you weren't, I don't know if you got to listen to it too, but
I did.
there was recognize the 3 vendors were also presented to audiences and may have made different assumptions about, to your point, Wendy, about what you learned that night, about the knowledge level of the board. Some vendors in their presentation included focusing on microfibers, use of microfiber wipes, and others didn't. But in consultation, they all do use them, but some focused on it, some didn't. And so we had that same, one vendor spoke about color coding, which would be, to summarize what that was, seems very bright when you think about it. And absent being in that space, I wouldn't know. But, that the ones used for the toilet rooms are different than the ones used for the hallway are different than the ones used for the kitchens. Gee, it makes sense. I should, now we're doing that at home. But it sounded innovative and new to me. And it may already be the standard in the industry, but to me, that was, an eye opener. I'm not defending it or arguing one way or the other on it. So I'm just trying to recognize that our vendors, as they presented, had different expectations or expectations of knowledge of the board, and some emphasized certain things that others didn't. Some did have the electrified water was certainly something which was a differentiator for one versus the other. The no-touch focus and discussion of no-touch disinfectant was much more focus of one than the other. So I hear it too. So it was interesting to sit through it. And truthfully, as a board, I think we're smarter now than we were just for hearing the 3 different presentations. So whoever the vendor is, we're smarter. And they have more to live up to.
Are they all here? I don't know.
they are. So SSC is behind you. Interstate's in the corner over here, and Aramark is in the other corner. They all have corners.
Really? Ding, 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 go.
I mean, I wasn't here, I don't know if we had the time. I mean, I'd be happy to hear a little commentary from them, but it's up to.
They've already made their.
Okay.
That's it. And we've got another meeting after this. I was pretty clear to you earlier, I don't ever want to see anything but a level 2 in my schools. You can't have to experience. Now, that's no one's fault. We did that to ourselves, but moving forward, we can't drift back in that direction.
I mean, the award's going to come with much pressure. There's no doubt about it, expectations.
Right. You need someone.
So I could bring it to the board.
Well, we're not voting. Would anybody be opposed to him bringing Aramark to the board as a recommendation? Any of the board members present?
I just feel like there's only 5 of us here, so
That's still.
I thought we should load it to the other 4 and see if anybody.
I could do
That,
I mean, I don't.
So there's nobody opposing
Usually
it.
there's
nobody-
67 of us,
Right,
it's
There's
different
nobody
then.
opposing it.
There's a timing issue with this too.
Right, we need to get them started.
Right?
My hope is to do it in February, but I have to get an agreement prepared that addresses some of the things that were discussed tonight. Rob Cox looks at it, and then, of course, their team looks at it, and it takes a little time.
You've got tomorrow, poll with 4 missing members. If anybody's violently opposed, then we'll regroup. You can let me know and but
Right.
I think that's probably,
It is. And the other thing is you have a second in mind that if in your negotiations with the primary, it isn't working, I don't know that we want to go for the second at this point.
Do we want to discuss that now? I'm
I'm not convinced we can discuss that.
I don't think that serves a purpose.
I don't think it serves a purpose either, other than, so. We good?
I'm going to move on, and then we're almost to public comment. So at that point, we can go ahead and open it up so Bob can get his meeting going. Well, thank you all for that. I appreciate it. So the items, the custodial service will be on the agenda, hopefully. Contractually, there's a timeline that we need to award this by. I'm sure that the firms would be willing to work with this regardless. I don't think we'll put it over the date and respect, but contractually, I have to address it.
When is the current contract up?
Well, the contract is up June 30th, but the timing of the award
Yeah. and the
is
date.
now, this month.
I'm just asking if we had to have Rob create an extension.
Um,
So it's June 30th, we should be fine.
I don't think anyone's going to run from their proposal.
But that being said, we owe it to them to
We do.
let them get moving, so.
Moving services, I'll be bringing that also. These are all planned. I was going to put this as a board agenda because of the significance of it. I thought this should be.
With the absence of 4 board members.
Consent agenda for the moving. Consent agenda for a color video camera that our plumbing specialist uses. We rent one currently. We spend a lot of time and a lot of cost renting them, usually because they come with an operator. They're video cameras. They come with someone that reads the video and records it and gives you the CD when they're done. They don't just give you the piece of equipment as they go to town. The payback is in about 2.5 years. Our plumbing specialist is fantastic, and we do a lot of viewing of underground lines, so it would be beneficial.
No
Just purchase
need to
it.
train him or her.
He's trained.
All right, good.
And it's in your budget, you just.
It's in our, these are all things that are in our moving supplies, these are the supplies that we would give the staff to start packing spaces up for the moves. They can begin to pack and put boxes in corners or in their buildings. Utility shed bid, we have 8 sheds that we would locate at each elementary school. We've addressed 2 schools already. When the governing authorities come out and do their fire inspections of our buildings, they have some issue when we have gasoline cans, even the mowers, the snow blowers full of gas in the boiler rooms or in the closet, wherever they live. They like us to keep them out of the building. We did that here. We did it at 2 other schools, and they're asking that we do it. I think we should just move them out of every school at this point and keep them free and clear.
Do you need zoning for are they square foot
They're
size?
small enough.
They're small enough, we don't need to zone.
I was just gonna ask, can you give us about 30 seconds, what are they metal sheds?
They're similar to, if you saw the new shed we put out back here, you just drive around the
Yeah,
back.
I'll have to go.
This shed met the Historic Society requirement. So if this shed did, then this is going to be
We
nice.
should be fine, okay.
They're nice. They're not T111. They're nice horizontal sided shed with architectural shingles. They're
And you'll try and blend them into the architecture of the building.
furniture. So this is being bid right now. Bids are due tomorrow, unfortunately. So I'll put this on. But this is the furniture for the Newtown Middle School. We already have the furniture taken care of for Holland. It includes getting some of the furniture that we still have at Richboro that's good, cafeteria tables and other things that are good between Newtown, and moving that in and then supplementing with what we need to finish the project.
And just for the record, it wasn't like Holland Middle School took all the hand-me-downs and we're dispersing this as
We are.
appropriate throughout, so.
This is a state contract process, but instead of going to just one, we're saying, hey, it's a state contract, I don't have to do any more, we've gone to 3. One guy has dropped, we have 2 that we're going to receive. So we still even competitively bid through the state contract, I don't just go to one. This is another one that is, we need to seriously consider, scan and digitize the archives. I have a room downstairs in this building that is full of drawings and piles of documents, and this company will come in and take this entire room, put it in the truck, sort every drawing, every building, create a file by building, by year of additions, by trade, and break it down, give you thumb drive, CDs, put it on a drive, put it on the cloud, and everything we have is digitized. They take prints that are heavily soiled and blue line backgrounds, and they turn them into reverse white background with black lines. The files are small. It's just, we spend countless hours looking for things in that file. And a lot of them are actually material. This is in our budget. I planned for this to be archived, so I did carry the number. So hopefully we can do this. It will be advantageous for anyone that ever takes over my position to be able to come in and have all this stuff digitized.
Doug, one comment there as you move forward. If we move forward security-wise, we don't want those on our website. Anything.
Generally, we don't. I mean, we might show a floor plan because the school has maps and plans for kids to get around. We don't show much more than that.
Yeah, just from a security standpoint.
Certainly security camera plans and things like that.
Okay, just so we're on the same page.
These wouldn't be on, these are just the arguments.
Yep, okay.
This is the flasher that we talked about earlier. And lastly, just coming up in March, update on the projects, facilities improvements, updates, plan continuity for Wrightstown, Newtown, Holland Middle School, Custodial agreement. If we haven't finished the final, coming into that meeting, if we don't get it this meeting, and then stage cleaning and fire, another RFP that we are getting out there so we can get those taken care of as well. That is it.
All right.
You're ready for public comment.
Well, first I'm going to poll the board. Any comments from the board at this point? Anything else? All right. There's a lot of people here, so public comment works very much like it does over in the other room. We're a little crowded, a little less formal here, but we'll go through. If you want to make a comment, try to keep it to about 3 minutes, and rules are the same as across the hall. So
the only reason I had to move across, although I left that jacket. If you want to sit down when you make your public comment, because the speaker that hears people is here.
These meetings are being recorded, yes.
So.
Nancy, you know, but I'll say, state your name and where you're from.
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough. I don't understand what you said about Rolling Hills, and I don't want to leave the room without having an understanding. You said that the soils are not good for, or the building as it stands for a wing or for an addition. Are we replacing the trailers or not?
Well, trailers aren't there at all.
They're not there. So they're not, that capacity is being removed from the school.
The existing capacity that's there is 18 classrooms plus a kindergarten. That's
Okay.
the place.
Every other renovation that we did, we permanently put in the space that the trailers we removed. So at Churchville, there were 7 trailers, and there's 7 more brick and mortar classrooms. There was 6, there's 6 more brick and mortar. We took 2 classrooms also, full science, and put 2 in the building. Goodenough, we had 8, and we put 11 on the building. And this is the first building in the most compact area of the school district where we're not going to put in the square area that the trailers had. Is that correct?
We have currently 18 classrooms there in a kindergarten room. And when we renovate, we will 18 classrooms in a kindergarten.
Okay, so, but when we had the trailers, we had 26 classrooms,
We had more trailers
Right.
than we have today.
right? Okay, so I don't understand also where we're growing, you know, that is kept Wrightstown open. And also, when I look at this Act 34 document, both the PED and the Sundance say we're going to start going down again after a while. So I'm like confused as to where we're growing, where we need the space. I personally am in favor of community schools. I like kids to be in elementary school, close to the school that they're going to. We are moving away from that by building spaces in schools where there's no elementary students and where we're not growing. And I don't think we had a public discussion on that. And there are 5 empty free classrooms at Old Pipestone, but we're building 5 at Wrightstown. And I think that's what's driving the all these Northampton kids going up to the north. So I'd like to have some kind of public discussion on where we're going to place classrooms and where we think we're going to grow before we start spending millions of dollars. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Nicole Williams, and my family lives in Richboro. We are very happy to hear that the redistricting committee is asking for more time to complete the work of redistricting and better utilize our facilities. George Sundell and the Sundance Associates were approved in February 2017 and paid an amount not to exceed $28,000. Dr. Frazier said his previous work with Westchester School District was top-notch. George Sundell himself stated, "I know how to manipulate numbers in a very honest and statistically accurate way. I understand the statistics, mapping, and community relations that go into this kind of effort. You will get comprehensive and diligent services from me." 8 months later, in October of 2017, his manipulated numbers were statistically inaccurate. His work was neither top-notch nor comprehensive and diligent. Community relations were seriously damaged as multiple schools were put through the ringer of potentially closing these facilities, as well as now looking to shuttle students away from their current facilities. As stated on the Redistricting Hub, the district could complete an additional demographic study for purpose of comparison. To do so, the district would have to hire a new demographer and pay for an additional comprehensive study, complete with new costs for professional services rendered. Check your work. We say this to our children every day, in class, at home with homework, and before all major tests and projects. Use multiple sources. Our teachers do not accept research reports utilizing a single source of information, let alone a flawed source. Continuing with Sundance is equivalent to a student writing a research project with Wikipedia being the sole notation on the bibliography. I request that the board take the time to finance and conduct the peer review and check into substandard work. The board recently approved a $43 million bond to update our facilities. And in addition, Mr. Block recently mentioned that the total amount is more like $500 million in total. $500 million? Utilizing those numbers to pay a new...
Just to be clear, it was $120 million in total expenses that the district, if we did all the projects that are currently potential within the district, it would be $120 million.
120 million, okay. So slightly trying to adjust those rates.
No problem.
So it would seem to cost the district, instead of 0.006%, we'll go with 0.01% of that total. 0.01 is all that's needed to check the map, to be statistically accurate, comprehensive, and diligent, while also being fiscally responsible. That would be top-notch. And Council Roth is too good of a district to settle for less than that. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Craig Mesmer from Holland and Village Shires. I'm going to be brief. I just want to say that I think many of us feel confident in the prudent recommendation that was sent out today. We thank Dr. Frazier and the redistricting committee and all the administration for at least being willing to make the recommendation to take a step back. We certainly await to see how the board feels about that, and we hope that they also agree. In the past weeks, we've all done a lot of reading and a lot of research on our end to learn more about the redistricting process. And I just wanted to quote one sentiment that was exclaimed by a board member. This was in an October 24th article that appeared in the BucksLocalNews.com. Quote, "It may be that Sundance is the best demographer for the job, but if the public doesn't believe the numbers and we don't have the support of the public, redistricting will be horrendous. If the public doesn't trust the numbers, I don't think we have a choice but to hire another demographer. We need to step back and reassess." End quote. I think 3 months later, if we look back on those words, they were perfectly on point and even prophetic in many ways. Those are words that build trust, inspire confidence, and provide a logical and fair plan moving forward. We hope that the board sees it the same way that we do. We thank, again, Dr. Frazier, the administration, and the committee for being willing to at least make the recommendation to say we need to step back, reassess, and make sure we get this right. Thank you for always hearing our concerns. I've been in education for 20 years, and I can honestly say that in my dealings I've had over the past very busy 3 weeks with board members, with people that have come out and given up their own time and not just responded back to an email or said, here's 5 minutes of my time. I mean, 30-minute, 45-minute conversations on the phone, hour-and-a-half meetings with 5 or 6 people at a time, and really hearing our concerns gives me a lot of confidence, whereas maybe when it was first announced and the map first came out, there wasn't necessarily that same feeling. So I think we're moving in a good direction. Again, we hope that the recommendation is seen by the board in that same way, and we do thank you for always hearing our thoughts.
Hi, I'm Susie Wachowski. I live in Village Shires. I first want to thank all of the members of the school board and the redistricting committee for the countless hours they've dedicated of their own time away from their families. I'm not the most comfortable in public speaking, so please forgive me. Thank you for considering the redistricting committee's recommendation to delay the February 15th vote and decision not to begin any redistricting in the upcoming school year. I know I can speak on behalf of myself, my husband, and my neighbors by saying our biggest request was more time. We simply need more time for this process. With this time, I would like to strongly suggest we get a second opinion on the demography. I just cannot stress how weary and uncomfortable we all feel about using Sundance after their inaccuracies, which threatened the closings of 2 schools and sent a shockwave into our Council Rock family as it outraged over 1,000 parents. Unfortunately, Village Shires is a significantly smaller community than those 2 schools added together. We are trying our hardest to voice our concerns. It seems to me that everyone's patting themselves on the back for only affecting just over 9% of the students in the school district. But in reality, it's that small percentage that is so damaging, and the fact that just over 9% is split up amongst multiple schools. My oldest is a 7th grader at Holland Middle School, so he will be grandfathered. My daughter's in 5th grade this year. The current plan has 13 5th grade students from Hillcrest moving to Newtown Middle after graduating from 6th grade with the kids they've been sharing classrooms with for 7 years. My middle son is in 4th grade this year. His class is the largest at Hillcrest. His grade is the largest at Hillcrest. This current redistricting proposal has 16 children from his grade at Hillcrest going to Newtown Elementary for 6th grade. He will miss that last year with all of his friends in the elementary school he has been a part of for 6 years. In 6th grade at Hillcrest, the grade has their class parties together as opposed to their individual classrooms because everybody recognizes it's their last year together. He will be thrown into a school with kids who have been together and forged friendships over that same amount of time. My youngest is in 1st grade. The current proposal has 12 1st graders from Hillcrest going to Newtown Elementary. If the move to another school was in larger chunks, I think it would be less of a blow to these students. I know there are programs put in place to help guide these students with the transition, but I also know that there are students who will not fare well in these types of situations. Kids are resilient. Of course they are. But why even set them up for the possibility of failure by sending so few of their classmates off to a new school together? I am not here to tell you that Hillcrest is better than all the other elementary schools. They are all amazing. I'm sure everyone loves their elementary school. I've spoken to parents who claim they'll fight even if they're proposed to move to another school in Northampton. The parents in Village Shires are just simply asking to get a second opinion on the numbers and to keep us in a south-leading school or move us in a much larger chunk. Thank you for your time.
No more? Any other board comment, administrative comment before we wrap this meeting up?
I just wanted to add something. Okay.
You introduce yourself.
My name is Bob Weller. I'm with Interstate, and I just wanted to thank Doug and the council and the board for reviewing this and taking the time and painstaking opportunity to be able to do that. All three are great companies, and if there's anything that, my team, and we have a lot of alum in the 1,000+ local people in the area, but if there's anything that we can do to help support the community as far as a bottling system or sanitizing, please let us know. We're readily available, and we get recommended on a moment's notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that,
Can I just say one thing?
yeah,
We sit here and it looks, I feel like you come and that was very hard. And we appreciate that you do this and we are listening. I swear we're listening. I swear we're paying attention. We're responding. I can't speak for everybody. I'm trying to keep up with the volume of emails as best I can. We're trying. We want to work together. We want to get this right as much as all of you do. And we appreciate it. Thanks, so.
all right, with that, thank you.
You're welcome to stay for finance.
Meeting